Hi, and thank you for tuning into Noire Histoire. I'm Natasha, and in the June 2020 edition of Noire News, I'll be discussing June's protests, some good news, and memorializing a few Black people who passed away this month. I have a slightly different setup for this video because my regular computer that I use to record is on the fritz. So let's get into it. If you're not already subscribed to the Noire Histoire YouTube channel, please take a moment to click the subscribe button. Click the notification bell to ensure you don't miss future episodes. Memorial: Wes Unseld, born on March 14, 1946, died on June 2, 2020. Wesley Cecil Unseld was raised in Louisville, Kentucky, and went on to spend his entire career in the NBA playing for the Baltimore Bullets, later the Washington Bullets. During his first year in the league, he won both Rookie of the Year and Most Valuable Player. After retiring, he continued to work with Bullets organization as a vice president, head coach, and later as a general manager. In addition to helping his wife establish an elementary school, Unseld was also involved with Baltimore organizations and programs focused on children. Wes Unseld died at the age of 74 from pneumonia complications after a long period of suffering from health issues. Donald Rachet Caldwell Jr., born on March 28, 1979, died on June 6, 2020. Donna Rachet Caldwell Jr. was born and raised in Tampa, Florida, where he went on to play football, basketball, and baseball in high school. He received an athletic scholarship to attend the University of Florida in Gainesville, where he played football for the Gators. Caldwell played for 4 teams during a 6-year career in the NFL. After leaving the league, Caldwell had some run-ins with the law, to which he pled guilty. While preparing to take his girlfriend out on a date, Caldwell was ambushed and shot in front of his home. The murder is still under investigation, but Caldwell's family believes that he was killed in a robbery gone wrong. Bonnie Pointer, born on July 11, 1950, died on June 8, 2020. Bonnie Pointer grew up in the church with her 3 sisters and 2 brothers in West Oakland, California, as a child of a minister. She started out singing gospel, but developed an interest in secular music, and with her younger sister June, began pursuing a career in show business. The duo expanded as her other sisters joined what became the Pointer Sisters, and later signed to Atlantic Records. In the late 70s, Bonnie left for Motown and a solo career, but disputes with the label stymied her recording career. Yet Pointer continued to work as a live performer. Bonnie Pointer died at the age of 69 from cardiac arrest. Jas Waters, born on October 21, 1980, died on June 9, 2020. Jas Waters, a writer who contributed to projects such as This Is Us, Kidding, and What Men Want, has died at the age of 39 from suicide. Before working as a screenwriter, Waters managed an entertainment blog, wrote for Vibe magazine, and appeared in a short-lived reality show. I wasn't previously aware of Jas Waters, so I don't want to make assumptions about her, her life, or the events that led to her death. But I think it's important to acknowledge that we are living in very strange and trying times. It's also okay to acknowledge that you're not feeling okay. But it's important to seek help at present or at any point in the future where you feel like life has become unmanageable or unbearable. It can also be incredibly helpful to take a moment to check in while still socially distancing with friends, family members, etc., who might be feeling anxious, depressed, or isolated due to our current circumstances or just life in general. If you or someone you know is considering suicide or any other form of self harm, please contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1 800 273 8255 or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Claudell Washington, born on August 31, 1954, died on June 10, 2020. Claudell Washington was born in Los Angeles and raised in Berkeley, California. At the age of 17, he was signed to the Oakland A's as an undrafted free agent and made his major debut 2 years later. During Washington's rookie season, he helped the team win his 3rd consecutive World Series title and went on to play for several other teams during his career, with 2 All-Star Game appearances. Washington passed away at the age of 65 from prostate cancer, which he had battled since 2017. Oluwatoyin Salu, born on August 27, 2000, died June 2020. Oluwatoyin Salu was a 19-year-old organizer and activist who had participated in Tallahassee Black Lives Matter protests related to the deaths of 3 men who had been killed by police in a span of 2 months. Salu, whose family emigrated from Nigeria, was studying cosmetology while also attending classes at Tallahassee Community College with the aim of later studying law at Florida A&M. Unfortunately, Salah was reported missing in early June and was later found dead with an older volunteer, Victoria Sims. Police allege that the two women were murdered by Aaron Lee Jr., who confessed to the crime. Features. Usually for the features, I discuss 4 or 5 major news stories from across the Black diaspora, but I want to do something a little different this month. I'd like to take a few minutes to share my thoughts on the protests that took place during the month of June, and I'd like to invite you to share your thoughts, opinions, ideas, etc. as well, but I just ask that you convey them in a civil manner. In the May 2020 edition of Noire News, I discussed the murders of Ahmad, Aubrey, and Brianna Taylor. The two shootings were the latest hot topics related to Black people being killed by the police due to excessive force or at the hands of a white person claiming to be in fear for their lives or self-defense. I also briefly touched at the death of George Floyd, which had just occurred a day or two before. I remember when I moved to Atlanta back in 2016, there were a lot of protests in major cities around the country following the deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. There were protests in Georgia related to the death of Ahmaud Arbery, but George Floyd's death touched off protests around the world. I think the story of George Floyd touched off more widespread protests because many people are still staying home or working from home due to COVID and were therefore more likely to have heard of the story and or had the time to get involved. To some degree, it's probably also a matter of people being tired of all of this. In the midst of COVID, health disparities for Black people has truly shown itself in higher mortality rates. Many Black businesses have been unable to obtain funds via the government's Paycheck Protection Program due to lack of relationships with large banks. And then even with all of these COVID-related difficulties, Black people are still having to contend with feeling unsafe in society. In interactions with the police, where people from other racial groups would be allowed to walk away or probably just be arrested at the end, it feels like Black people are at greater risk of the situation ending with their death. I'll be honest and say, I don't know how I feel about protesting. I understand its use as a tool for raising awareness about these issues, but at the same time, I feel like we've been protesting for generations now about the same issues. On the one hand, I'm trying to be optimistic because it's not just regular Black people calling for change, but also government figures, corporations, organizations, etc. On the other hand, I feel like there's a lot of talk about support for equality and protecting the civil rights of Black people, but little in the way of concrete plans of action. To some degree, it feels like some entities are just jumping on the bandwagon because it's the politically correct thing to say right now, but there'll then be no real action beyond maybe issuing a press release or statement. It's not enough for politicians to give speeches about the wrongs of inequality and hope for a better way forward. You need to look no further than voting issues continuing to be a problem in states such as Georgia, the president encouraging states to respond to protests and riots over excessive uses of police force with aggressive force, and even going so far as to forcefully remove peaceful protesters for a photo op. Respectability politics of the past, to some degree, primarily focused on what Black people needed to do to be treated like human beings, or aimed to achieve equality under the law for a certain kind of Black person. In contrast, the protests of recent years have been for Black people from different walks of life and didn't use their education, career, etc. as the basis for why their life should have been preserved. The focus has been on their being a person and having a natural right to have their life and humanity valued and observed. Another thing that I like about this current movement is that it calls on everyone to get involved. Often, Black people are called upon to do the heavy lifting when it comes to improving race relations, but white people have been called upon to become informed on not just the current issues, but also the history of racism, and to not just participate in protests, but to speak out and educate their friends, families, and members of their community. At this point, racial inequality has existed for several hundred years, but that doesn't mean that things can never change. It simply means that society must truly want that change and be willing to put in the work. Don't get me wrong, protesters and reporters do their part by bringing attention to individual stories and issues that might otherwise be overlooked. But I think we all have to also ask ourselves, how can we contribute our skills and talents to the movement to achieve progress? For some, that might be protesting. For others, it might mean becoming involved with community organizations or local government, maybe volunteering or teaching, and not necessarily in an official capacity, but rather just in some way that's beneficial to the community. The point is that we all have something that we're good at or some capability to be useful so we can all get involved. And so we end on a positive note, some good news. Crystal Hansley has launched We Solar Energy, America's first Black-owned community solar energy company. Hansley previously worked in government and saw firsthand how the use of solar energy could help households lower their electric bills. We Solar gives households in underserved Black communities the option to either purchase blocks of electricity or a share of a solar panel, which can result in average savings of $6,000 over the average 20-year lifespan of a solar panel. $430,000 has been raised to purchase the property that will house Soul Food Market. The planned Black-owned Atlanta-based supermarket will primarily focus on products produced by Black farmers and food manufacturers. Backed in part by the founders of We Buy Black, the company hopes to generate jobs and help to circulate more Black dollars within the Black community. Orange Wall Enterprises has signed a distribution and licensing deal to install autonomous stations in a variety of environments that will require screenings for symptoms of COVID-19. The Maryland-based company has developed two types of no-contact stations that will be produced by Promobot, a robotics and AI company. Orange Wall is headed by two entrepreneurial Black women, Linda M. Dorman and Carol E. Howell, who have also developed rapid antibody test kits. The Morehouse School of Medicine was awarded a $40 million grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. During the month of June, the school was selected for partnerships with the HHS's Office of Minority Health, as well as the CDC Foundation. The partnerships are part of a federal push to address COVID-19's disproportionate effect on Black populations. Brian Birdman and Ronald Slim Williams have teamed up with the mayor of New Orleans, LaToya Cantrell, to help cover June's rent for the city's low-income housing residents. The brothers, who are the co-founders of Cash Money Records, have a long history of giving back to the city's residents with a focus on housing, healthcare, and education. The city has been heavily impacted by COVID-19, and in addition to the rent initiative, the Williams brothers also partnered with local radio stations Q93 and WYLD in May to give away $10,000 in gift cards for groceries. Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand have pledged $100 million over the next decade to support organizations related to the Black Lives Matter movement. The brand plans to become more actively involved with communities and advocacy organizations by providing support for education and policy change initiatives. Jordan's parent company, Nike, has also pledged $40 million over the next 4 years to community organizations. In fall 2021, Robert F. Smith will launch the Student Freedom Initiative, a nonprofit that will offer junior and senior STEM majors at historically Black colleges and universities an alternative to private student and Parent Plus loans. Repayment obligations will be based on students' income and last for up to 20 years after graduation. Smith has also proposed a plan to address the structural racism that has underserved Black businesses, banks, and communities. He pointed out during a recent Forbes summit that an infusion of just 2% of profits generated by America's largest companies over the past decade, an estimated $25 billion, would go a long way towards helping the Black community achieve parity with wider society. I know that we're still in the midst of dealing with COVID, and I hope that you and your family are staying healthy, staying safe, and still trying to find some kind of way to enjoy life. Wish you all the best and continued good health. Or if you're not feeling well, I hope you get well soon. Thanks for tuning in. Show notes and sources are available on the Noire website via the link in the episode description. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up button. You can also share it online, on social media, or with someone you think might enjoy the episode. Doing this will help other people find the show, which helps it to grow. If you aren't already subscribed to the Noire YouTube channel, I hope you subscribe now and return to get motivated, get inspired, and get more stories of Black history made and in the making. Until next time, take care.